Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Schwartz and I'm back with another how to draw video, this time talking more about a technique more than doing a specific character. This is how to do what's called scribble drawing. And the idea behind scribble drawing is actually quite simple, it's in the title. This can also be referred to as something called gesture drawing. And the idea behind this is that a lot of times, to begin with, a lot of people who do scribble drawing will not lift their pencil or pen off of the paper at any given time. So, what that means is you are then forced to stop thinking in terms of, okay, I can lift my pen off the paper and do something else. Now, every single time you move the pen, it counts in terms of how the final product is going to look. Now, this is called gesture drawing because the idea behind these is, if you look online, you can see a lot of times where the person doing this, the scribble drawing, has done ridiculously realistic sort of people and effects and things like that. And that's amazing. But the actual idea behind this is to sort of get you loosened up, to have you start thinking about drawing in a different way, and sort of train your brain to do something just a little bit different than what you might normally be doing. A lot of people can use this technique to actually retrain themselves how to draw, and then can actually just do better as a result of that. So when it comes to scribble drawing, you really only need a pen. A pen, and because I use a pen instead of a pencil, because a pen really helps get home the permanent aspect of every line you're doing. And also the fact that every single time you do a line, this way you're not judging yourself too harshly as saying, oh, I drew a line. Oh, it's the worst line ever. I can't stand it. I need to erase it. No. When you're doing a scribble drawing, you draw a line and you say, okay, now can I make this line work? Can I make it work within the drawing or something like that? You get the idea. This is to force yourself to not judge yourself quite so harshly every single time you draw a line. So that's why I think a pen is very useful. It basically forces you outside your comfort zone really fast. So when it comes to scribble drawing, there's actually more to it than just doing wavy or curvy lines. You can have large loops like this. Basically, the more space you leave within your scribble, the lighter the scribble will be. The more times you go back into that same scribble, and you can see that when I'm doing this, I'm not just going in one way like this. This is something that you would do more with cross-hatching or hatching. Now with scribble drawing, you want to be coming at it from all different directions. You really want to bring home the very rounded sort of idea behind scribble drawing. This, to me, looks much more visually interesting than something like this, than forcing yourself to stay very linear. This versus this. You start to get the idea. The tighter you control your scribbles, the darker it will get. The more space you provide, the lighter it gets. That's basically the idea behind it. Again, you want to come from many different sides to this. You want to come from the top, you want to come from the sides, you want to come from different angles, all different sorts of ways. This is what helps you have your really interesting looking effects and different textures. This is a way different texture than something like hatching or cross-hatching will provide. Okay, let's get to some real examples of this, of how to apply this. Okay, so fresh page, ladies and gentlemen, and as you can see here, I have two circles, one of which I have actually shaded in according to what many of you probably know pen and ink shading looks like. Pen and ink shading usually revolves around taking a series of lines like this and putting them closer together to make it dark, further apart to make it light, or you cross them in front of each other to make even more value. That's the typical way of doing it. You can also do little dots, I suppose. But this is the most common method. This is very common to do. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to show you how to actually shade according to the scribble method, because there is a lot more technique involved in scribble drawing than you might be thinking. So when it comes to scribble drawing, what you want to do is, number one, just like I did here, you do not want to start off by outlining the circle. That will really just destroy the kind of texture and the look that you're going for with scribble drawing. Same thing here. You can see that if I go ahead and just straight up outline this sphere over here, it really does just mess with the actual shape of the sphere that I already had due to where the value was ending. This just makes it look a little bit tacky and a little bit kiddish. So over here, we're not going to do that. So to start off with, it's easier to start off in the area that you know is going to be dark. We're going to shade this according to what this looks over here. Light, medium, dark. Very common. So always start off in the darkest areas because then you can always just go up to the lighter areas. Better to start off in the dark in my opinion. So once again, while I'm doing this, I'm not going to take my pen off the paper. I find that that helps really force you to think about where you're actually going. So as you can see with my method, instead of just going in one particular pattern over and over again, I'm actually just moving up, down, left and right, everywhere. Overlap, and then if I do it in a smaller area, if I focus my hand into a more smaller area, it makes it all darker because the pen doesn't have really any places to go, very many places, so it darkens those up. Now, as I'm moving out to the sides, as you can see, where I'm stopping with the pen dictates what the actual side of the sphere is going to actually look like. I think this looks much more natural than doing this. Picking up where I left off. Now, it's very easy for the pen to stay light if you simply do something like this. You just get some value set in and then you don't go back into it. If you don't go back into it, then it's going to stay light, obviously. But if the more you go into it, the darker it becomes. So we want to do super dark around here and going into medium, going into light. So once again, my method is simply just moving all around and never really keeping the same pattern. So it all has this look of, so it all has this really cool look of spontaneity to it, instead of just being a specific method that I use each time. You can see visually the differences between the two. I personally find this to look just a bit more interesting. But again, that's my personal opinion. You're free to have yours and debate in the comments below. Now while I'm doing this, I'm going to start getting into the lighter sections of the sphere, around about the middle. So at that point, I just need to make sure that while I'm doing this, I'm leaving more space within the area that I'm scribbling. That just means that I don't spend as much time within that section. The more time you spend in a section, the darker it becomes. Now once again, not taking your pen off the paper forces you to think, okay, I'm over here, but I really want to shade over here. So while I'm doing that, it would make the most sense to just shade this section on my way over to the other section that I need. This also forces you to think about the fact that if you need to come from over here to over here, then that means that you are going to be putting some kind of value in there as you move. It also means that while you can see that if I need to move from one side to the other, I don't just straight up go over there. You don't just immediately go over there. What that would do is that would make a giant mark in your drawing that looks entirely different from everything else, and you'd have to try very hard to cover it up, but you probably won't succeed very well. So if you need to move from one location over to the other, you really need to continue that same sort of motions that you've been doing throughout the drawing as you move over. That way everything will still look cohesive. Everything will look like it fits together. Getting up to the lightest sections, I'm just going to put some really scribbly tones in there, and then I'm just going to move around it. Not going to touch that stuff in the middle. And that's basically that. So that sphere is done. We have light, medium, and dark tones. Again, I think this looks just a bit more interesting than this does, but some people really prefer the more clean and controlled method versus the more messy, uncontrolled method. And also something else that I've seen some scribble artists do is they will do things like this, where they will have giant, big strokes of their pen move around their object. This is more of a visual choice thing. This can be really used to help illustrate the fact that yes, everything that is in here was made using strokes just like these. Now you can do this if you want, or you don't have to, but again, just embrace the nature of this sort of drawing. Embrace the idea that you're moving with scribbles, that it doesn't have to look completely realistic, and have fun with it. Again, I think this just helps make it look visually interesting. So, now that I've taught you the basics of how to do something like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to a clean sheet of paper and do a fresh scribble drawing to just show you just how you can take this idea and expand it. So, let's do that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so I went ahead and finished up the scribble drawing of a teacup. You can see I embraced the idea of just doing these crazy large scribbles out here. Just make sure that they don't totally interfere with your design. Got a shadow here, and we have some basic shadows around here. So again, it doesn't look entirely realistic, but I do think it looks very interesting. It's very unique. You don't really see a lot of drawings or artists that are willing to do things like this. A lot of times the quote-unquote best artists, or the ones that are the most popular, will have these really tightly controlled details and these really photorealistic effects. And that technique is perfectly fine. I do that technique myself in terms of portrait drawing. But something like this, I think it just can be seen as a breath of fresh air. Something that you can use to cleanse your system of your preconceptions of art and just really embrace technique and have fun. And that's the point of this whole thing in terms of art, is to have fun. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and by the way, I cannot believe that in the time that I have been absent working at school, developing lesson plans, having some other big events happen in my life, that I've reached 1,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh. How did that happen? How did 1,000 people decide that this crazy dude who never shows his face, who just posts mainly drawings of avatar characters, would reach 1,000 subscribers? Thank you so much, all of you, everybody out there. You are all why I do this. This sort of thing I haven't been able to do recently just because there's been so many other things in my life, especially just like I said, being a teacher. I will do a lot more of these videos come summer. I'm really excited to get back to those. There's been a lot of requests, a lot of characters from Korra, which I haven't seen before. There's been a couple requests for Studio Ghibli characters like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service and Totoro, and I'm very excited to do those. But for now, I just wanted to provide you with this. I thought that this would be a fun, different sort of video for me to do. And again, thank you, all 1,000 of you that have subscribed to me. I can't believe that that happened. Thank you so much. That's amazing. You are all awesome people. So, this has been Mr. Schwartz with another video for Mr. Schwartz's Art Hour. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I'll see you next time.